Hey everybody, I'm Tyler Lamb, and this is Better Know a Hero. This episode we're going to talk about Deadpool, and I have a Deadpool fan with me. His name's Charlie Pixley. Charlie, you're a Deadpool fan, correct?
No. Yeah, no, I enjoy the character a fair amount. He's definitely one of my favorites.
With the new movie coming out, it broke a lot of records in the box office, so basically I'm just gonna... This is for people who don't really know much about the character. Maybe they just saw the movie, want to know more. Maybe they want to see the movie, but they don't know anything about him. They can listen to this, learn about his past a little bit, and hear the perspective from a fan of the comics. And so this is going to be, a reoccurring type YouTube video podcast thing that we will do that, and I'll have a different guest each time who is more knowledgeable about the character that we're talking about. And so yeah, Deadpool. This episode, he started out. Do you know the year? I think it was in the 90s that he was created.
91.
91. It was New Mutants.
98. But it's really impressive though that he is as popular as he is for being still a relatively new character.
Yeah, that is true. I guess I never really thought about that. He's not, especially compared to characters that all of these comic book movies are being made about.
Definitely, yeah.
He's the youngest for sure.
Yeah, because both Superman and Batman are like 75 years.
Yeah, and then the X-Men,
a lot of other ones are at least like 50 and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And he was created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian
Nicieza.
Okay.
That's how I said it. Always, I don't know. It's
all right. And
it's a weird name.
And you've read New Mutants 98, correct?
Yes. There's lots of heavy shading.
Oh, because it's drawn by Rob Liefeld, who, if those of you who don't know, just Google search Liefeld, and you will get. I think the top results is Liefeld's 25 worst drawings or something like that.
Oh no, that's a two-parter, and each one is 40 different images.
Yeah, this guy.
Why he's the worst.
This guy is well known to be a terrible artist. I don't know how he was so big in the 90s. I guess it was just a different time. Like, he can't draw feet. Like, I mean, I can't draw feet, but...
And he was just working as of like a year or so ago. Like, they still bring him on to do the occasional one-shot.
Yeah.
And he was doing the Deathstroke series for DC from the New 52.
Oh, he was. Yeah, that's...
I think he was even writing that, too.
I think you're right.
Who is paying this guy?
Which is kind of funny because he came to Fabian. I'm not going to try to say that last name again. He came to Fabian with the idea of Deadpool, and
Fabian told us this himself when we talked to him at St. Louis Comic Con.
And Fabian was like, "This just sounds exactly like Slade Wilson, Deathstroke from DC," and so Fabian was like, "Let's call him Wade Wilson," like kind of make it a joke, and that's where the character started. What's the character actually like in the first issue? Is he anything like this goofball fourth wall breaker jokester Merc with the mouth character that he is today? Is he anywhere near that?
It's been a while since I've read it, but again, it was just a brief introduction, and if I remember correctly, I think he just like appears out of nowhere and he's just trying to kill Cable, I believe. Really? And he's just pretty serious. I don't think there's any like goofing around or anything, and not in anywhere close to what it is nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, it's one issue, so you can't really get too deep in development of that. Sure. Just kind of toss it in. And I remember Fabian was telling us like, this was like a last-second decision too, wasn't it? He said to put him in. He's just like, yeah, I want to do this character, and we'll make him look like this, and he'll just be like a mercenary and all this stuff. Like, okay.
I think I remember that because Domino plays more of a role in that issue than he does, doesn't she? Because that's also the introduction of her as well.
And one other dude who really nobody cares about anymore. Even Domino is she's still around, but
she's not very well known, but she's still
hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
It's true, as Meatloaf always said. And so since then, I think what I read correctly, Fabian took over because he was the writer and Liefeld was the artist. They co-created, and Fabian actually took over for a solo book of Deadpool. I guess somehow he spun off and got that people wanted more of that character just from that little introduction, and he wrote it, but he didn't really like writing it because Deadpool, I guess, was more so of a mercenary than he is now. Like now I feel like he's closer to an anti-hero than he is just a straight up like I just want to do what I want for the money or whatever. And Fabian said something along the lines of he doesn't want to write. He didn't like writing for a character who didn't have any repercussions for his actions. Like he never had to pay for any of his wrongdoings.
That I haven't heard that from Fabian. That might be true though too. But I remember Mark Waid did that.
Oh, was it?
Because he
Wade?
wrote a 4-issue miniseries. And he was saying, I got it right here. It says, Wade later commented, frankly, if I'd known Deadpool was such a creep when I agreed to write the miniseries, I wouldn't have done it.
Yes.
Someone who hasn't paid for their crimes presents a problem for me.
Yeah, that's right. I guess I got those. I got those mixed up.
That series isn't that great anyway.
Yeah, that was the one that was like, okay, so that one was the one that was a little bit after Deadpool's creation. There still wasn't.
That was either his first or second.
Yeah.
Solo limited series, because there was the Circle Chase, and then there was another one, and the Circle Chase was the one that Wade didn't write. I want to say, okay. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but there were 2 like 4-issue solo series.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah, that's where I have you here. I messed up on that. Fabian didn't write the first solo series. It was Wade. Fabian came back later down the line. But yeah, so Wade wrote that and. Then in the like later 90s, Joe Kelly took on the reins of the head writer, and back then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more of a like cult hit type comic book. Like it wasn't like say a Spider-Man or X-Men or that kind kind of following.
Oh
but
yeah,
it, like,
I mean, he
it was
definitely
like one of those that there was enough to keep making it, but it wasn't mainstream or anything.
Yeah, I guess if I could compare it to anything right now, and this might be a bad comparison, would be like Superior Foes, where they get away with doing pretty much whatever they want because they're not sure. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, they don't have to worry about sales of it in the sense that like this is our flagship character. We need to be consistent and not push too many boundaries and stuff. It's like, we're gonna do whatever we want because we might not even be here next year.
Exactly. And I think that might be a good comparison because Superior Foes of Spider-Man was that it was more of a cult hit. Didn't have enough sales to even go on, but they did kind of just do what they wanted because they had these characters that at the time didn't really matter. Like Deadpool didn't really matter at the time. He wasn't a big character. He didn't shift anything in the Marvel universe. If Deadpool were to have died in that run or whatever, it wouldn't have affected much of the Marvel universe at the time. Correct?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying that's so that this is when he really started becoming the kind of character he is now, right? Like he started kind of breaking the fourth wall.
I would say so. I mean, a lot of people consider it like the classic Deadpool.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as if you want to read like the essentials to read this, I think there's like 3 collected volumes. I'm still working my way through collecting all the single issues, but that's kind of tricky, and it's only going to be trickier now.
We'll touch on that a little bit later. But this is where Blind Al and Weasel both are introduced in this run, and they're both characters in the movie. T.J. Miller and is Weasel. I don't know who plays Blind Al, but they both are in the movie. So, that is definitely taken from the Joe Kelly run. And this is this the series that gave him those different personalities in his head?
Honestly, I'm not sure on that. Which one started all the different voices? I know not all the series have had that. Like the current one does not have that. It had it for a little while with Madcap. Okay. But we can get to that later when we get to more modern day stuff. But I don't think it's necessary for the character to have that based off just the current series not having it, because I've been reading that and for the longest time, I didn't even notice that it was gone. Yeah. Because the writing is good enough. There have been a couple bad arcs, but a lot of the writing was good. Or it's one time they mention it in the book, I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even notice that he doesn't have the extra 2 or 3 voices that he sometimes has in his head. Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, Joe Kelly actually stated once that at the time with Deadpool, we could do anything we wanted because everybody just expected the book to be canceled every 5 seconds. So nobody was paying attention, and we could get away with it. And I guess...
Which kind of it's good sometimes. Like,
yeah, I guess that's why...
You're willing to take whatever you want.
I guess that's why he brought in that fourth wall breaking gimmick.
Probably.
Which we all know that kind of stuff may have been, inspired by Howard the Duck, but that's... different issue.
I'm sure other fictional characters have done it at some point.
No, dude. Howard the Duck was only ever to make fun of stuff like that, dude. No. And
two characters interact well together.
He used to wear all those pouches, dude. Obviously, Deadpool is just a... But, and then after Joe Kelly, I'm just going to kind of go through the writers right now. Christopher Priest was... the writer, but he didn't write for long, and when Christopher Priest took on, I think that this is an interesting quote from him that kind of brings into the whole Daniel Way age. Was Christopher Priest said that complex and he found issues with Kelly's writing and found it to be complex and a little hostile to new readers, and that by issue 37, Priest realized that it was, quote, okay to make Deadpool look stupid, end quote. And I feel like that's kind of important when looking later into the future of how the character became when Daniel Way was writing him, which we'll get to in a second, because first... Gail Simone actually wrote for Deadpool for a while. She's really big now. She did Batgirl for a while, and that really apparently that's a great run. I haven't gotten a chance to read it all.
She wrote as I can see here what I'm looking at. And I've looked at these issues before. I only have a couple of them because I'm still not sure which all the ones I need to collect. But like Agent X, and it wasn't specifically Deadpool at the time, but it clearly was if you read it, you know. But I don't know. I think then they ended up just saying, like, yeah, it is. Basically, just count that as part of the story.
Okay. And then Fabian, this is when Fabian came back in 2004 with Cable and Deadpool, which is, that is like the buddy cop type. That's like the comic buddy cop now. Like, when
that was supposed to be a really good series. That's the one that I haven't even started buying any single issues of that yet, because
I've read.
It's going to be pretty daunting, but I'm going to evenally go through and get
I've read the Civil War Cable and Deadpool, and it is really like they do work with each other pretty well, because Cable is just the straight man to Deadpool's work with the mouth persona, and it's awesome. And I mean, Cable's awesome at the end of the day, so you can't really go wrong with that.
I agree.
And then after that, a few years after that, is when Deadpool was written by Daniel Way, and this is the most like dividing style of Deadpool. Am I wrong in saying that? Like, people either love it or they hate it.
No, I wouldn't say. I would say that's right.
Like, it's almost, and people call it Waypool, his form of writing Deadpool, and it's kind of funny to me because all these other writers seem to just not even matter in the argument of what is the best Deadpool, because it's either Joe Kelly or Daniel Way. Like, people seem to argue on forums and stuff just between those two styles.
Yeah, I have seen some people that think that it's that, or at least the stuff Jerry, I don't know if it's Gary or Jerry, but Dugan is doing right now is pretty good. Mm-hmm. He's been really consistent.
That's the one with Posehn,
for the past couple of years. Yeah, Posehn hasn't been on it since the renumbering.
And
but
that's the most.
Yeah,
that's the most. That's the most recent writing team, right?
Yeah.
And which renumbering are we talking about? The one in the past, out of the last like 12 in the past 2 years that Marvel's done.
2 days, yeah.
But yeah, have you read any of Waypool at all?
No, not a lot of that one. I almost have the full series yet, but I want to finish it and then burn my way through it. From that, I might have a few, but nothing where I'd feel comfortable saying that I've read a lot of it, or that I'm really familiar with it. But I would say that I'm familiar with just things that I've read about it, and things I've seen online about it, and it seems pretty meme-tastic.
This is when it's really pop culture heavy, is from what I've gotten, like referencing things like that, doing a lot, breaking the fourth wall even more, because I think in Joe Kelly's run it wasn't really a joke, was it? Like, I don't know if I've never read any of it, so I don't know.
It probably wasn't. I don't think it was as excessive.
So whereas
goofy.
Yeah, whereas in this run, Daniel Way's run, it apparently he became. One of the things that I've noticed people say, he's more of just a clown who kills people in this run, and not a mercenary with like problems and mental issues, which he does in Joe Kelly's run. He's more. It seems like people think he's more of a deeper character in Joe Kelly's run than Daniel Way's run. And since all that, like you said, Posehn and what was his name, took over writing.
Jerry Dugan.
Okay, Dugan, and now it's just Dugan. And
and somebody else, I believe. But
there's been a lot of other people that have just done like little series. The most popular mini series thing, I think, was written by Colin Bunn, who did the Deadpool Kills series. He started out with Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe, which blew up. That was
a great series.
And it was really good. It was like a good Elseworld kind of thing where Deadpool just goes crazy and kills. He wants to destroy his existence, essentially, and since he knows he's a comic book, he decides he needs to destroy everybody in the comic book universe. And then it goes on from that to he has to destroy every single literary work that has influenced all those characters if he wants to get rid of himself. And then after that, he realizes it switches to a different Deadpool. And that Deadpool has to stop the crazy Deadpool killing everything from killing all of the Deadpools, because now he's like on a mass murder streak to all Deadpools, so that none of them exist anymore or whatever.
Yeah, it got a little chaotic towards the end, but it's good for a mini-series that isn't canon or anything, just a fun story.
I think there were
Cullen
5
Bunn,
issues each.
He's a successful writer
he
of
is.
Deadpool, I think. I'd say he's one of the better ones.
Yeah, I think that it was, it was very accessible, and it wasn't too goofy, and it also wasn't too heavy, but it was still like, do you feel that it fit the character well?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, as far as it not being too heavy, I think maybe a little towards the end, but if you made it to that point anyway, I think you liked that kind of stuff enough where it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
If you picked up the last issue of Deadpool Kills Deadpool, you'd probably be like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you made it through the other 2 series first and got to that point, you're probably you're on board at that point.
Yeah, we're gonna go into some of his character traits more deeply, and his powers and stuff like that. So if you haven't put it together by now, he breaks the fourth wall. He knows he's a comic book character. He talks to the reader and stuff like that. And it's funny that I was mentioning Howard the Duck earlier, because apparently there was once where it was mentioned that he has those different voices in his head. He has like different personalities that speak to him sometimes. One of them is Dr. Bong, who is a Howard the Duck villain. And then another one is Madcap, like you said, who is a Captain America villain. He's Canadian, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. It said like that. Something I read earlier was saying that he might not have been right at the very beginning, but ever since then,
yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? If I've read this stuff correctly, it's one of those origin stories that is kind of like changed based off of who is writing it.
It's always been kind of vague, just to the nature of how he got his powers and stuff. You can kind of be a little more free to be like, well, he might not even know himself.
Yeah, it says sometimes things are retconned or ignored. Apparently, one time Loki claimed to be his dad. Do you know about that?
No, I did not know about that.
But he's also he was a Special Forces Army member.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that then was like later retconned.
Oh, really?
But,
okay.
But honestly, who knows? And at least it works with this character. it works more so than another already established character. Just switch things around on them, because if you just switch things around on Deadpool, you can at least acknowledge it in some sort.
Yeah, and apparently, he's actually Deadpool has joked about it himself in the comics about all the different
I'm sure
stories about him.
I know he's commented. I've read some before where he's commented on the different authors in his path that have written him.
Mm-hmm. And the originally he was Weapon X, just like Wolverine.
Yeah, I believe he volunteered to go into it, and at least from all the stuff I've ever read, they made it a little different in the movie though. But he never had any mutant genes in him. He just mutates. They experiment on him and gave him those abilities.
In the comics, they gave him the abilities.
Yeah, as far as everything I've ever read.
And his major ability, or it might be his only ability, is regeneration. Correct? And it's accelerate. It's not. Yeah. Wolverine has regeneration, but isn't Deadpool's more accelerated than?
Yeah,
Wolverine's?
He's got full starfish regeneration too. At least from all things again that I've read. Where it's even better than Wolverine's. Well, sometimes it can be a little chaotic where, and again, like all comics, it depends on who's writing him, but sometimes if you cut off his finger, well, unless he attaches that finger himself, that finger's going to grow back a body. He's going to grow back his finger.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to kind of keep track of what body parts come off.
I mean, other than that, it's just, he's a skillful...
It's a standard superhero fare.
Yeah, where sometimes it's like, it seems like he's got super strength.
Yeah, and then I think there've got to be other characters like this too, but the advanced healing then gives you other powers like mental defense against psychic attacks and stuff like that, because your mind just is constantly healing itself and everything like that.
Yeah, and he has cancer in the comics, correct?
Yeah.
He has, and is that before he goes into the Weapon X program?
Yeah.
Do you know? Okay. And then the healing factor is, the cancer gave him the scars on his face.
I believe the experimentation gave him the scars.
Okay.
But then that's why it's ironic that he has the healing factor, but he can't heal those scars.
Yeah. Which he's done there was a series where he lost his healing factor, correct? But he was able to heal his
voluntarily got rid of it, I believe, and then got his original looks back and everything. But as with comics, nothing is ever permanent, so
it went back. Did they explain that? Did he...
I think it was just a serum of some sort,
Serum, okay.
We've got the vial of MacGuffin X.
MacGuffin X. So he's got this cancer in the comics, and he volunteers for Weapon X, gets the scars, permanent healing, so he wears the mask all the time, he jokes around all the time. Well, so let's talk about the movie for a little bit here at the end.
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Exactly. How great was that Baraka pool? No, we'll try to avoid that, because that's obviously a abomination to the character. But this newest movie, Deadpool, the one that just came out, to all those characters. Let's be honest, there's a bunch of characters in there that are just destroyed,
shat on.
But as a Deadpool fan, what did you think about Deadpool the movie?
Overall, success for sure.
Yeah.
I was very, very worried. I was hopeful, but cautiously optimistic is the best way. Man, some of the promo material was great. I love the billboards making it look like a romantic comedy. I thought that was genius. Yeah. But then some of the other commercials and stuff's
I really like the one commercial where he talks about the Australian commercial where he's talking about Hugh Jackman and he has that hat on. But I do agree that it was very hit or miss with the marketing, and it was kind of I too was kind of worried that it was going to be more of a meme pool, which I guess is more of the Daniel Way type era, I guess, from what I've heard of that era of writing. But as somebody who went into it, I enjoyed it as well, and it wasn't, a masterpiece. It wasn't perfect. Not every joke landed, but it wasn't overly goofy all the time.
No,
And some of the action scenes were awesome, and there were some great nods to characters like Hydra Bob,
oh
which I'm
yeah,
sure
I
you
was
were
really
pumped
pumped
about.
about that. I want to see more of them. I think it did. It's kind of hit or miss. Like we said, some of the jokes fall flat, but I guess it almost did a good job of summing up a lot of the different writers of the character in that. And like,
That's true. That's
there are
true.
parts that I don't really enjoy. And just because with every character in comics, there's writers where it's like, oh, this really isn't that good. You can kind of stay away from that. Like even Batman, the Dark Knight series that was in New 52. Oh, God, that was pretty bad.
And even some great writers of a character can have some rocky storyline.
Yeah.
But still, so I see what you're saying there. And I think that, especially talking about the character's past and all that stuff with you right now, I feel like it kept pretty true to the character. It gave him the origin of his powers fairly. Like, it wasn't Weapon X with Wolverine or anything, but he still volunteered for that after having cancer.
And I think they did that just to separate itself a little bit and not have to tie in so much to the rest of the X-Men world in the movies, but it was still successful. I mean,
yeah, and he's goofing around. There's some great action sets.
Yeah, the scope of the movie was really good in that it wasn't like, oh my god, the world has ended.
Yeah, exactly.
Deadpool needs to save. It's like, no, I haven't seen John Wick yet, unfortunately, I know. But it sounds, from what I've read about that movie, like that, okay, this dude did me wrong. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life until I get to that point so I can kill this person.
Yeah,
just straight up revenge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it seems to do that character justice, especially after the X-Men Origins debacle. I mean, it may not have done Negasonic Teenage Warhead. She's nothing like that in the comics, but then again, she's been in one comic.
Yeah, that's
ever.
how I think that works, so you can do
whatever,
really.
Yeah, but Colossus also,
oh yeah,
I
awesome.
mean, that's the best rendition of Colossus ever. I mean, actually Russian, full on metallic and huge, and being this goody two shoes type father figure guy. I mean, that stuck true to that character beautifully.
Yeah,
and
I would like to see him again, hopefully.
Yeah, and it's also cool that like I said, the Hydra Bob thing to you earlier, you being a fan, but even Weasel and Blind Owl. I'm sure I remember when.
Definitely.
They were first cast or announced to be in the movie. I remember you texting me being like, "Oh yeah, Blind Owl's gonna be in the movie." You were pretty pumped about that because those are
yes, I was.
These are all characters that aren't really essential to Deadpool, but they're part of his
great ensemble for him.
Exactly, they fit with him well, and so including him into the movie was just worked out, and it did in the end. Yeah, so I think the movie was pretty good. And
his character definitely works well when he has characters that he is attached to. So I can definitely see in the future movies, perhaps like Blind Owl or Weasel more so than he did in this one, being in a threatening situation where it kind of brings a little more humanity back to him instead of just being straight up ruthless killing machine. You know?
Exactly. So, that's some background about Deadpool and a little bit of thought from somebody who is passionate about the character, I guess. Charlie Pixley?
Yeah, I would say, and if I could give any recommendations for reading, I would say try out Deadpool Kills the Entire Marvel Universe, or it might just be the Marvel Universe, I don't remember. Deadpool Max, I think that one is one that doesn't get enough credit, and there's two parts, 2 series of them, but I think it's only 20 issues total, but that series is twisted, and I really enjoyed that one. Lots of just odd stuff, especially with Taskmaster, who I hope we can see the movies eventually. I don't know what the right situation with that is. So I'd say Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe, Deadpool Max, some classic Joe Kelly, like the Deadpool classic trades, Deadpool and Cable, and the Jerry Dugan story arc, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a 5-issue series with Deadpool, Captain America, and Wolverine, and that one is awesome. It does the best thing that you can do with Deadpool is hit you with the comedy, and then out of nowhere hit you with the tragedy, because then you really start to feel for him. It's not just like meme pool, like we said earlier, where it's all haha jokes and stuff. It's like, no, this dude does have some tragic moments, and that's when it works the best with comedy.
Also, make sure to check out Rick Remeter's run on Uncanny X-Force for a good characterization of Deadpool. I hope you enjoyed this episode where we discussed all things Deadpool. Next time, we'll be talking about Wonder Woman, so stay tuned for the next episode of Better Know a Hero.
3 Wise Radio!